The bar graph depicts the number of fictitious books read per 1,000 persons, broken down by age and gender. According to statistics, there are around 95 young male adults participating in this, with approximately 45 young female adults. The number of teenage boys between the ages of 15 and 18 is fairly high, at 140, with adolescent girls following at around 105. Male children account for little more than 100, with female children accounting for 90. Gender-specific data on how Canadians aged 16 and older used their free time is depicted in the following table. For both sexes, sleeping took up the greatest time, at little over 8 hours, while conducting other things took up only 13 minutes. Despite the fact that girls worked an average of 2.5 hours per day, males worked an average of 3.5 hours each day. Men worked more than women despite the fact that both sexes spent the most of their time sleeping and the least amount of time doing anything else. From 1979 to 2009, the graph shows the average cost of food in 4 nations. The highest increase occurred in the United States, which jumped from 60 cents in 1979 to 325 cents in 2009, an increase of more than 1,000%. The smallest increase was seen in China's grocery prices, which went from 60 cents to slightly over $150. There was a lot of price inflation overall in the United States, but there was very little in China. The flowchart is a visual representation of the design process in engineering. Step 1 is to identify the issue, and Step 2 is to come up with solutions, as shown in the flowchart. We may choose a solution after we have a list of ideas. Additional customization options include custom manufacturing and assembly of the item to meet a specific need. Finally, before presenting the results, it is critical to evaluate them. In engineering design, every phase of the process is critical. The pie charts depict the main reasons why individuals arrived to and left the United Kingdom in 2007. The graph clearly shows that job was the most important factor in this decision. A certain job accounted for 30% of immigration to the UK, while the percentage was nearly same for emigration, accounting for 29%. A high percentage of persons, 22%, emigrated because they were seeking for work. Another prominent factor driving a relocation to the UK was formal study, which accounted for over a quarter of all immigrants. Despite the fact that a large number of persons, 32%, reported other or no reasons for emigrating, this only accounted for 17% of all immigration. Three alternative meanders or loops with a water path are depicted in the illustration. The water runs through the meander in the first image, but the narrow neck of the meander begins to disintegrate owing to the power of the water. The next graphic depicts the progress of depositions in the narrow neck of the meander. The water is now rushing quickly via the fastest course, virtually cutting the small necks of the meander. The final photograph indicates that the meander has been entirely severed, and the water is flowing smoothly via the new, shorter and faster course. We can deduce that water has discovered a way around the meander on its own. The bar graph, which is measured in tens of thousands, depicts the week's worth of daily vehicle production. As the week progresses, it appears that automobile production rises steadily, peaking at 13,400 cars on Wednesday and then fluctuating, with just 2,000 cars manufactured on Saturday and no cars made on Sunday. Overall, Wednesday is the day when the most automobiles are created, while Sunday is the only day when no cars are made. Over the course of 5 years, the pie charts show online sales for 4 Canadian retail industries. It's worth noting that food and beverage sales went up by 32% and video game sales went up by 23%, respectively. There has been a decline in the sales of electronics, appliances, and home furnishings, which fell from 25% to 15% and 35% to 30% respectively. Overall, food and beverage sales grew the greatest, while home furnishings sales fell the most. The graph below shows data on Internet users who used their phones to access the Internet. 16 to 24, 55 to 64, and 65 plus are among the options. This graph shows that the value is about 32% in the range of 45 to 54. This graph shows that the value is about 50 in the 35 to 44 range, which is higher. This graph shows that the value in the range of 16 to 24 is approximately 70%, which is the highest. This graph also shows that in the age group of 65 and up, the value is approximately 8%, which is the lowest. Finally, this graph is quite useful. There is a pie chart that shows the proportion of each activity. Pronunciation, intonation, vocabulary, and speaking tactics make about 15% of the total. 20% of the IELTS reading and questions require scanning and skimming methods. Spelling and grammar, vocabulary, essay structure, and describing charts make up 40% of writing. Finally, listening accounts for 15% of the spelling equation. Writing is the most common form of communication, whereas speaking and listening are the least common. There is a road running along the shore and a cliff in the foreground in this shot. Cars are parked in the foreground, while people are wandering along pathways along the cliff edge, which offers spectacular views of the ocean and a lighthouse in the distance. The contrast between the lush green fields and the sheer height of the cliff's edge, as well as the clear blue sky, is striking. Looking at the weather, it appears to be a beautiful day on England's fabled Dover Cliffs. These pie charts show the population of countries of the European Union in 198 and 2007 by percentage. In 1998, the other 21 countries in the EU had the largest population, at 29.4%. Poland had the smallest population, at 8%. In 2007, the other 21 countries once again had the largest population, at 29.7%. Poland again had the smallest population, at 7.7%. Overall, in both 1998 and 2007, the other countries in the EU had the largest population while Poland had the smallest. In percentage terms, this graph shows how economic activity has changed throughout time. A reduction in life expectancy has occurred from the Federation generation's 44.2 years to the Gen Z's 42.5 years, as seen in the chart below. The average life expectancy has risen from 53.6 to 70.6 years, which is a considerable increase. As a result, the percentage of Gen Zs who are inactive has risen from 9.4% to 28.1%. The percentage of people who are sedentary has risen from 17.6% to 39.8% in the last decade. The level of economic inactivity has risen steadily over the years. This double bar chart indicates irrigation potential created and utilized in major and medium irrigation projects in India from pre-plan era to 9th five-year plan. According to this double bar chart, gap between created and utilized irrigation potential is negligible in pre-plan and first, second and third five-year plan. The gap between irrigation potential created and utilizes is steadily increasing and highest during 8th and 9th five-year plan. The chart indicates that efficiency in exploiting created irrigation potential is decreasing steadily from first five-year plan to 9th five-year plan. The graph below shows the current status of nuclear power plants in Europe. The biggest nuclear power generation, as seen on the map, is in France, with 58 reactors. Following that, Russia has the second largest, with a total of 30. The Netherlands, on the other hand, has the least number at 1. Spain has 7, Germany has 8, and the United Kingdom has 15. Finally, France is the world's greatest nuclear power producer. People's favorite movie genres are shown in a pie chart. Romance films accounted for 30% of all movie viewing, followed by action pictures at 25%. 20% of moviegoers preferred sci-fi or comedy flicks, while only 5% preferred dramas. Romance films are the most popular, while dramas are the least popular. The image gives a crucial piece of information on the development of world's population. On x-axis we have the years from 1750 to the present year, and also a prediction for the year 2050. On the other hand, the y-axis is labeled with 0 to 10 billion. The graph has both information developing countries and industrialized countries. It is clear from the graph that developing countries across the world are suffering from a huge population today, and in 2050, the scene will be worst, reaching 10 billion. Though industrialized countries will also have more population in future, as of now, it is a little bit in control. I can conclude that in both types of countries, the population was pretty steady till 1950, but then it skyrocketed. In 2010, the percentage of school-aged boys participating in 5 different sports in the United Kingdom was compared between 2 age groups. A total of 87% of 8-11-year-old boys participated in football, while 78% of 12-16-year-old males did the same. There were just 19% of participants in both age categories who participated in swimming. The data in the table also demonstrates that boys of both sexes participate in a wide range of sports. Among males aged 6 to 11, football is the most popular sport, while swimming is the least so. The three pie charts shows the most popular social media channel between 2011 and 2013. It is immediately apparent that Facebook was the most favorite social media channel, but its popularity declined over the time frame. On the other hand, Twitter and LinkedIn showed a similar increasing trend ranged between 15 and 25%. Finally, a small proportion of Google Plus and Pinterest was viewed. To conclude, Facebook was the most favorite, while Pinterest was least browsed. Between 1970 and 2007, the dual line graph depicts cigarette costs in the United States and cigarette usage. The source is Economic Research Services, the tax burden on tobacco. If we look at cigarette consumption in billion packs, we can see that it starts at roughly 27 in 1970, rises gradually until 1982, and then starts to plummet dramatically until 2006. On the other hand, typical retail pack costs in dollars have increased from roughly $2 in 1970 to over $4 in 2007. Overall, I can state that, while cigarette usage has decreased in recent years, cigarette pack costs have risen dramatically.